Hey, welcome to Made for More. My name is Aaron Burke, and I'm so glad that you're listening to this month's episode. We're going to talk about expansion, how to multiply whatever business you're in, whatever church that you're in, to make a big impact. So we're talking about an expansion mindset within the leader. But if you're new to Made for More, hopefully someone shared this with you. We put out new content every single month. Last month, we did some bonus episodes on health. I hope they helped you. If you missed them, go back and listen to them. And I'm excited about the next couple months and what we're going to be talking about, some awesome guests we have. I'm doing a standalone next month that'll hopefully be a lesson that'll help you. So it just keeps getting better. So make sure you subscribe. If you are watching this on YouTube, make sure you push like right there and subscribe to the We Are Radiant YouTube channel. And if you're listening to this on Spotify, here's what I need. I need you to let me know. So tag me. I'm on Instagram at Aaron R. Burke, Aaron R. Burke. And I love seeing what you're learning and how it's helping you and get better. So today I have one of my closest friends with me today, and I'm super excited about this conversation with Bobby Sasser. If you do not know Bobby is an incredible leader. I call him the brain behind the operation here at Radiant Church. So Bobby, give us a little bit, first of all, before we talk about Radiant, give us a little bit of your history, kind of where you came from and how you got to where you're at today.
Yeah, for sure. Well, glad to be here. Made it to Made for More.
Man, you have made it.
I made it. Yeah, I made it. And no, I'm a listener to the podcast, so thanks. Awesome. Thanks for doing this. A little bit about me. I'm from Florida, from the northwest part of Florida, the Panhandle as we'd call it, and wasn't really raised in church. Have a great family, good parents, but kind of stumbled into a youth young adult group at 19 and changed the whole trajectory of my life. And God's been good ever since. I'm married to my beautiful wife, Kat, and we have two amazing boys, Ezra and Elijah, who are 10 and 7 years old. We have a dog. We're Doodle family, so we have a Labradoodle named Max. And so we've been in Tampa now for 5.5 years and living the dream. And so excited about all that God's doing and family life, ministry, everything. It's have to pinch myself sometimes. It's good stuff.
That's awesome. And just so y'all know about Bobby and I, we've done life together for a long time. We traveled the world together. We live life together, and we're actually running our first marathon together.
Yeah.
So hopefully this is a big deal. Hopefully.
Running is going to be the
question. We're doing a marathon together. That's the question.
Yeah, no.
And the one that he picked out is in Nashville. Yeah. That is one of the most hilly marathons.
Lots of hills.
I'm not excited about that.
No, it'll be fun. So my only thing is I'm hoping, because I have a height disadvantage when it comes to you. But I believe that through training and discipline, I've just got the Rocky soundtrack on.
Yes,
so
nonstop.
My goal is to honor you, but to beat you in that marathon.
I have no dog in this fight. Actually, I'm going to try to win. Okay.
Yeah.
So just a little bit about you real quick. So I always ask some rapid fire questions. Your favorite cereal?
Hands down, Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Me too.
My entire life, by the way. I've never had a different favorite cereal.
Same here. Hey. That's why we're good friends. Okay. Are you a beach person or a mountain person?
Ooh, both. Yes. Hawaii, they have both.
They have both. There you go.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, when you get to Bobby's level and you can just travel to Hawaii whenever you want.
It's like, it's a tough life.
All right. Good show you binge watched.
So I'm a listener of the podcast. I knew this question was coming, and no judgment, but I'm currently not watching any shows. I don't watch any shows at all. And not because I'm like highly productive. Yeah. I follow a few YouTube bloggers and stuff like that. But I'm not on a show right now. But historically, West Wing, older show, but
Loved
really
it.
good.
Yep.
Office fan for sure, Parks and Rec, stuff like that. If I were into a show, so I've got this in the queue, is Yellowstone.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet, but I want to be.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's good. That's a good one. And one of our guys mentioned that one last month. All right. And then last question. If you had to eliminate a fast food restaurant off the face of the planet, what do you eliminate?
KFC.
No.
Yeah. The reason they do fried chicken a disservice. As a fried chicken connoisseur.
Yes.
KFC should go out of business.
That is terrible. Who does fried chicken the best?
Everyone else. I mean, I can go down into the pit of churches, upscale to like the chicken and waffles, Oxford Exchange if you're here in Tampa.
Yeah, very good.
But KFC, it's sad.
That's funny. All right, we're going to talk about expansion. And what I love about this is hopefully it's a topic that will help every leader. So, because nobody gets into the industry they're in to keep it the same. They want it to grow. they wanted to expand. And so you've been around Radiant, not the beginning, but pretty close to the beginning. So give a little bit of the history of expansion at Radiant.
For sure. Well, I think we have to start. Well, one, I think expansion. I agree. It's in us, and we just have to tap into that. So I'm super excited about the whole podcast here. But I think we have to start for Radiant with the beginning. In the beginning. 2013, you and Katie parachuting in, launching the church, which is now our South Tampa location. What is really crazy is 3.5 years into that, which is kind of wild to think back on. We went multi-site.
We did.
To what we called our downtown location. Which was awesome, and I'll get more into that later. But in 2018, we launched St. Pete. In the fall of 2018. 11 months later, we launched our Brandon location in 2019. The month after that, so September of 2019, we moved that original downtown location to what is now called the Heights. It went permanent. 2020, we had plans of launching our North Tampa location. Big event happened in 2020. COVID kind of rearranged things. However, the silver lining was we officially launched our online location.
Presence,
So we had an online presence. We streamed services. But we had a guy who funded and kind of said, hey, if there's divisions there, I'll back it with buying technology, staffing it. And so we kind of had a full-fledged online location launch, which is awesome, with next steps and a dream team and all that stuff. We redeemed North Tampa in 2021. And so they just celebrated a year in January. And then 2022, we went to Clearwater. And so, which is a lot. So just to recap, church launch in 2013, 2017 downtown, 2018 St. Pete, 2019 Brandon, and the move permanent to the Heights. 2020 online, 2021 North Tampa, 2022 Clearwater.
We have stayed busy. Multiplication is part of what we do here at Radiant Church. So that has been kind of our history. Why have we done this?
I think I think it's in most people. Now, most people, whether they talk themselves out of it, whether they, paralysis of analysis, whatever it might be. Honestly, I think to speak to our context specifically is, we didn't get in our own way. Like, honestly, there were some messy sides of that. But the mission was real. Like, we felt called to Tampa Bay. We felt like God had given us a big dream to expand, and that, we're in the context where, we're not in a massive city, but we're in a large enough city where, people aren't in one community. And so we needed to expand to make the church local. And and I think we're just, honestly, I think at the end of the day, we didn't want to just have the status quo. That there's always vision, that there's always new communities and new initiatives. And so I just think it's in our DNA, and it came very natural.
And I think it was really important for people to understand that the 3.5 years before we launched our downtown location, we were already multiplying with multiple services.
For sure.
And I mean, we were in 4 services at our South Tampa location, which is our broadcast original site, before we launched downtown. So I hear people all the time like, I'm going to do another site. I'm like, have you multiplied where you're at right now? And so just in those communities, because I think it's really important, because you mentioned, 6 different communities, 7 being online. How do you pick those areas? Like, what are you looking for in those markets?
So I think there's a few variables to that. One is there's data. We're able to kind of see. So like right now, even we're looking at where groups are already at and where dream teamers are driving from, and really kind of where our church already exists. And they're making a drive to a campus.
So good.
But there's a cluster. What we found is usually there's pockets of people. Maybe it's a suburb. Maybe it's just a little further down the road. And so, but there's typically pockets of people that are clustered in another community that are making the drive to a physical location. I actually don't want to minimize this too. I think a lot of it, call it the Holy Spirit, call it the gut. That sometimes it's like, we feel good. And I know that's not like the great answer, although. So it's a good mixture of like, let's look at the data, let's not be unwise, but also like we're risk takers, and let's just like, what's God speaking to us about? What do we feel in our gut? And because of that, I feel like that gives us the momentum and the initiative to take new territory.
There is a whole idea behind the intuitive leader, the leader that just can feel it and go, doesn't make sense. I obviously believe it's the Holy Spirit leads us. It did not make sense for us to go into North Tampa during the middle of COVID.
For sure.
During a spike in COVID, it was crazy. But we went into there, and I mean, they just celebrated a year. And I mean, for the national average of a church is 3+ times the national average of a church size, like in a year old, which is the grace of God.
And it's working. And actually, one quick story on North Tampa specifically. I happened to be in their leader night. They do a kind of a volunteer high-level leader night once a month. And one of the student leaders was talking about that very thing. She had attended South Tampa for a few years. She's a mom. She has a high school student. And even when the Heights opened, she's like, I considered it. It shaved off a couple of minutes from my time, but it was still in a different community.
Right.
But when North Tampa launched, she's like, this is what I've been waiting for. This is my community. This is where my daughter goes to school. This is where I work. And so all of these friends that she had been inviting for years that weren't, like, she was okay with making the 30-ish minute drive to South Tampa. They were not. Now they're coming to North Tampa because it's not 30 minutes. It's 10 minutes. It's 7 minutes. It's their community. And we would have missed that had we talked ourselves out of, oh, it's 2021. Oh, it's COVID. Oh, this isn't the right time. Again, you want to be wise, but don't talk yourself out of what God's kind of put in your heart. And because I think that there's always going to be barriers. There's always going to be things that you can say, it's not the right time. It's not, it's not the right season. There's still those barriers for us.
Yep.
And obviously we have to weigh those out. We have to evaluate those. We have to consider all of those things. At the end of the day, though, you have to take some risk.
I love that. And so I think one of the phrases we use, and especially for church leaders that are listening to this, that are going, man, we want to learn how to multiply. We want to learn how to do this, is that we say that for the local church to be effective, it has to be local. And so we love it that people drive an hour to come to our church or one of our campuses, but we realize they're not going to invite their friends. Like, there's something about it. And it's something about going into their community that makes a big difference. So let's talk about what we need to do for people that are listening to this to prepare to grow, to expand. I always tell people it's like there's 3 things that determine this. One, do we feel like God's saying to do it? Yeah, that's like number one. What is the Holy Spirit saying? Do you have enough money? I mean, money is a big part. I challenge people all the time, like, get margin in your budget. We've lived on margin. We launched campuses with margin.
Yeah.
But the third one is you got to have the people. Like, the people component is so huge. So, like, talk about, like, the keys of what it's taken us to really go into these communities.
For sure. Yeah, I think what you're saying is true. It's like, without the vision is great, but it's going to take some money.
Yep.
And it's going to take people. People, I think, honestly, like, we always knew that. And God did amazing things through our church throughout all of these years of expansion. But it's one of those things that we're even in the place where we're constantly evaluating how we're developing people.
Right.
Because it's so necessary. It's like the grace of God, the finances, and the people that are like, different pedals on the same bike.
It is.
So the idea that I really feel like I'm the recipient of, but also that we're currently doing, is there's a good balance. One is the key word there is intentionality. You have to be intentional about developing people. So once you establish that, there's like an organic side and there's an organized side. And again, as a recipient, there's trips, there's hangouts, there's different things that I've personally been developed by you, because it's like, hey, I'm going on this trip, or I have this thing going on, come with me. And there's the flight, the layover, the hangout, where it's just like, the word there is osmosis. It's the process of, almost unconsciously developing someone with ideas, with knowledge, whatever it might be, which is massive. We see that in the life of Jesus. Like, there was an osmosis of development that proximity to a person helps you be developed by them.
Absolutely.
So you can't diminish that. At the same time, for scale, you have to have some organized side, which is like, we were in a business group together, and one of the guys, it was like the big epiphany, right? In order to be on the same page, there has to be a page.
That is a key phrase right there that one guy said in our business leader group, and it just changed our life.
Yeah.
Because we're like, we don't have a page yet.
Yes, we don't have a page. And so I think that's the thing. And I would say that most organizations probably err on one side. They're probably either heavy organic development or heavy organized development, and both have pros and both have cons, which is why it's necessary for both of those to be together. They're not in competition with each other. They actually complement each other. So on the organized side, organic is osmosis. It is proximity development. On the organized side, it's like, hey, you got to write some stuff down. You probably have your culture of what you want your leader to look like. You're already the leader. You're trying to reproduce yourself. So it's already there. It's just not organized. And so put it in writing. That's where the handbooks come in. That's where the SOPs, that's where the actual, on the calendar trainings, that's where we're reinforcing values and we're teaching people things that we really believe and that are in us, but we're intentionally, from an organized standpoint, developing them in this. And so even for us, really practically, if I can for a second, we have a process that's an organized developmental, again, osmosis, organic stuff is happening simultaneously, but the organized side, from attenders to being on our, what we call the dream team, that's our volunteer teams. We have a process that takes those team members into a place to be team leaders and coaches and kind of dream team leaders. We have a process that takes those dream team leaders and gets them prepared for staff. And then a process that takes those staff members and prepares them to be pastors and pastors to campus pastors. And so it's always, it's not like a one and done. It's a constant evaluation, a constant evolution, really, of taking someone really until Jesus comes back or until they step onto the other side of eternity. Like, we're still being developed. And so it's not just a class and it's not just a meeting. It's a whole process that needs both organic relationships and organized curriculum.
I think it's brilliant. And I hope leaders that are listening to this and I think you need to coin that phrase between the organic and the organized, because that's brilliant. And both of them are just as important. So it's not like, hey, you went through the class, great, you're a part of it. No, you went to the class, now let's go get coffee and hang out. One of the leaders at the campus that I help oversee, she's doing family dinners night. And I'm sitting there going, what are this for? Like, these people already went through a class. She's like, but there's nothing about like just sitting around playing a board game on a Sunday night that you're just developing people.
That's so good.
And I think we got to get to a place where you realize you're never done with developing people.
Absolutely.
Just like you're never done raising money, you're never done getting fresh vision, you're never done developing people. And the only way we've been able to launch now 7 campuses in 8 years is the only way it's possible is because we've had more leaders than we've needed. And that does not happen accidentally. So to send out to Clearwater 100 plus leaders is very hard.
It is.
But that was months and months, really a year of us planning and preparing. So just so people know this, and I love how a lot of people from Radiant listen to this, and they might like to hear kind of the behind the scenes. So let's just talk Clearwater. All right, let's talk from North Tampa launches to we celebrate it. We always do a big dinner. They'll see it on my Instagram. We'll do one in a few weeks for Clearwater. We take the location pastor out, get him a big steak and his wife because they worked hard.
They did.
But then from there, your mindset shifts. That campus is up. Talk to us through that until Clearwater launched. What was the process that we went through?
From North Tampa to Clearwater.
From North Tampa to Clearwater. So we get done with the campus, and now you think, okay, next campus. What's that process look like?
That process, for me and the team, it really is like, so what we call campus development. So we're always upgrading. We're always intentionally developing campus. It's almost like kids. Like you're not like, oh, you're 1, you're out of diapers, we're done. No, it's like eventually they're 2, 3, 4, 10, 11, 12. So it's like there's just different levels of care and ownership at different stages in different ages. And so, but you launch. Really, our big thing is we like to launch large, not because we want a large church, but we know there's going to be a drop off. And so we try to get a lot of guests to that first service, knowing that a lot of people might come back, might not come back. And then we just level out, and we're committed to that area. So like marriage, we're not backing out when it gets tough. Like we're committed to building God's church in that community. And so that triggers, the first couple weeks are critical. But really so we're going into the 4th weekend of Clearwater this Sunday. It'll be officially a month old. But behind the scenes, I'm already thinking about a couple of communities. We already actually have the full data of how many groups we have, how many dream teamers we have, how many givers we have. Not because we're trying to manipulate data. We want to know where our church exists in the next community so that we can always be thinking about where we're going. Because what we've realized is that it takes time to build teams. It takes time to see, because there's big positions that people have at current campuses, and maybe they're making the move. One thing we saw with Clearwater is that it's a newer team. Like it was people that had attended Radiant for a long time, And because of the distance and the drive, they weren't able to be involved. Whereas now they've came alive because they're able to be involved. So all that to say, I think the process, I personally, I think about North Tampa all the time, but I thought about Clearwater pretty quickly after. And does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense.
So really trying to, and I think for me.
So without giving everybody a timeline, because I know it's hard to even remember all that. So from, let's say, February, when was it sold in your mind? Okay, we're going to Clearwater. I know me and you are having all these dialogues.
Yeah.
We're sold, we announce it.
So our timeline, we there's a sweet spot between 6 to 9 months,
right,
where it's really kind of organized. You're thinking about especially the staff. Within that 4 to 6 months, you're kind of starting to organize.
I know. I'm going to just pause there and talk to a lot of people. Notice his timeline when it's publicly. Now, me and you've been talking about Clearwater for years.
Yes.
But publicly, there's not a year, 2 years that this is being talked about to people.
No way. Yeah, that's
because
way too
people
long.
Can't hold on to something that long.
Correct.
So I think it's really important that the church is triggering and hearing, okay, they're hearing an announcement, really not even, I can't remember when we announced.
No, and definitely not huge announcements. A lot of times we'll cast vision to something.
Right.
Let's say if we're launching in August, we'll probably announce it at Easter. Honestly, to the church.
To the church.
Now, there might be some behind-the-scenes stuff where our staff finds out a few weeks before that. We're thinking, so it kind of builds on each other. But definitely, people, there's a sweet spot of a runway where exactly what you said.
Yep.
Too long is too long.
Yep.
It's like engagement. Nobody wants a long engagement. It's like, when is this happening?
Right.
And so but at the same time, it does take some planning. And so you don't want to go, hey, next week we're launching a campus, or next month. And so we like to do a few months of what we call launch team, which is not necessarily the dream team. There's not even really any positions. They might be on a team, but there's no leaders yet.
Right.
And so we do a couple of events, not too many, because we want to stay on people's minds and not their calendars. So we need a couple of events that connects people. But really a few trainings, because again, now different than a church plant, a campus launch is you already have your culture. You already know what your DNA is.
Right.
And now you're transferring that culture. A lot of people are making missional moves. A lot of people are getting, ignited into the dream team for the first time. And so it's a little different. We don't need as much time.
Right.
And so usually 4 to 6 months is when we're building that team. And then the last 2 to 3 months is really the prep. Hey, this is the facility we have. We know how we're setting up kids. We know what our different departments are going to look like.
Right.
We're doing some kind of higher level and then in-depth training as the weeks go on. We have a few practice services, and then we go public.
I love that. And so there's a lot more that we'll give people of this, because we're actually hosting a masterclass about multiplication. So if your church is trying to go multi-site and you're listening to this, we're creating that. So if you follow me on social media, you're going to see I'm going to be putting some information out. We have a website. It's not built yet, but it's called multiplymasterclass.com. And we're going to actually be doing, it's in May. We'll do a couple days here in Tampa. So you'll be able to come and learn. We want to help your church with that. Now, people would look at this and go, it's just so easy for you guys. No,
No.
We have learned through a lot of pain. So our first campus, you came in right before we launched that campus, but it was kind of already in the running.
So I got here June of 2016. We launched
January,
late January of 2017.
Yep.
And so downtown it was kind of somewhat in motion, and going from 1 to 2 is hard.
Very hard.
It's very hard, and
way harder than going from 1 to 2 services.
Yeah.
Just want people to understand that. So if you're sitting there going, we're in one service and we're going to this, it's way harder to, if you own a restaurant, it's way easier to multiply your current menu than it is to start a separate restaurant.
Yes.
So just understand that it's easier to multiply where you're at first, but then go ahead. So
we launched it. Back then we did 1 service. Now we launched campuses with 2. And so,
I want you all to understand the why behind that. Because there's multiple campuses that we've launched that, there's 120, 150 people sitting in a service, and you go, but you could have one service and have 300 people in a service. But our why is always about health. Our goal is not to launch big churches. Our goal is to launch healthy churches.
Yeah.
And the healthiest church always has a serve one, sit one opportunity. so you can serve and then you can sit in a service and experience it. And we just realized we would kill our kids teams and our different teams that really wouldn't have an opportunity to experience the vision and the presence of God in the services when they don't have an opportunity to sit. So it's non-negotiable for us to launch with 2 services. So big mistake. We launched with 1 service. What else did we do there?
So I'll get into the people because a lot of it is relying on the people.
Yep.
So the people that helped launch our downtown location are actually still on staff.
They're amazing. Yes.
They're incredible. So they were the right people to do it. I think what we had to learn and what I personally had to take responsibility for is we really didn't train. We kind of had we still had our church plant, which was South Tampa. And then it's like this campus. We didn't quite think about multi-site as a church until we went to 3. And so I think there's a lot of lessons we learned in going from 2 to 3 that we just didn't know. And we didn't know what we didn't know.
Right.
And so I think there's some resourcing and there's some development of expectations of how we communicate. Not to be funny, I don't know if we want to go down this story, but we actually renovated our South Tampa location.
We did.
Right, like a few months after we launched downtown. And
it was a disaster.
Literally every Sunday, there was a slideshow of how nice the new shiny thing was going to be. At South Tampa. And so I think, now would I...
And then when we opened it up on that Sunday, South Tampa was so packed and there wasn't a person in downtown. That poor team.
Yeah. And it's pretty close by.
Yeah, 10 minutes from each other.
10 minutes. But I think it made us who we are.
Yes.
Like we learned, I'm glad we kind of we had to learn a lot. And we still talk about those days. Our team, again, because there's people at every campus now that was a part of that launch team. And it's so cool to show up at different events and meetings and they're there. Like there's like that remnant of the original launch team. And so there was so much grit there. But I think we learned that there's an organization side and there is a coaching, a process that we probably needed to spend a little bit more time. I think we were thinking Sundays.
Right.
We were thinking hey, are we going to do a service or not? There's going to be worship, kids, and there's a message being streamed in. We didn't think about all the other pieces. And even the pre-launch strategy, and again, the people that launched the location did the best they could with what they had.
Yes.
And so we just know so much more now having gone through that.
I love that. I think it's so important, during those days, we were running 1,400 people as a church, and we'd have 150 of them at our downtown location.
Yeah.
So you got to think percentage-wise, they were 10% of our church, or less than that. Sunday, we hit a record attendance, and what I love about this, what happened on Sunday, record not since COVID, since we started the church.
Yeah.
More than 50% of our church was in a location.
Correct, yeah.
Which I just want people to understand outside of the broadcast. So, broadcast is super healthy. It's growing. It's great. But I've got to recognize we finally at our place at a church that more people are attending our church. Not, honestly, the 2 different places, there's more people online every week than are in our buildings. And there's more people in other buildings than there are in our broadcast.
Yeah.
So, between those 3, only a third of them are attending in-person gathering. in a person gathering, I'm actually there. So why I say that is because you have to have a Bobby that comes to every meeting and his focus is stop thinking about the minority of our church now that is in person with you and realize majority is out there.
Wow.
And if you're not constantly making that a focus, if it's just like, oh man, I'm excited, I hope those things do well, that's not our church. It's actually, that's more of our church than even what we're doing here. So we've got to make it a win.
Yeah.
And it's a mentality shift. And I think when we started our 3rd location, we got it and realized if we do this well, and then you have churches like Life Church, which 95% of their church never sees Craig Groeschel live.
Yeah.
Like it's just a different, and honestly, we're on trajectory. Like every year, I want that number to go less and less that's up broadcast, more and more that's there. But you've got to keep the vision in front of you. So let's talk. We only got a few minutes left of advice that you have for people that are listening to this. They want to expand. They want to multiply. They're maybe church leaders that want to add a location or add a service, add a ministry, what's your wisdom for them?
Yeah, I think any of those apply. Service, ministry, campus, whatever it might be. I think actually getting connected with some people, whether it's us or someone else, that can kind of help you. Don't reinvent the wheel.
Yep.
Like we're not the first ones to this state. Like we are actually the recipients of a lot of coaching.
Yep.
And we're thankful for that. So I would say that get somebody that can kind of help you see the blind spots, kind of help you even prepare your team and what that looks like. So that's one. The other one is, and this is actually a cultural thing, is that I think expansion is spelled RISK.
Yep.
Like you have to stop. Like there's probably vision in documents on the Google Drive and on whiteboards and in different folders throughout church buildings and businesses building, like just offices. And there's vision that's gone to die. And it's like you just got to pick a date and start. Like let the idea become a reality. Like we've had to do that where it's like, you know what, we're picking a date, even though it might not make sense. Like we're picking a date and we're going to commit and follow through. I think that's the one thing that I've seen a lot of people that have so much potential. Like they have the vision, they have the resources, they have all of the necessary ingredients, but they've talked themselves out of it. And it's just time to commit and follow through.
I love it. And just to help some other church pastors that are listening to this, it's because I know some of them are thinking, well, if we multiply, the room won't be filled, there won't be a lot of people show up. What a perfect time to do that. And the next year or so, I don't know anybody that's like going, man, can we please get crowded in a room close to people and let them cough all over us? Like you're in a pandemic, hopefully, thank God we're getting out of this. But at the same time, it's the perfect time to take some risk. Hopefully you've pulled back some of your expenses, got some margin, start something. And, whether it's a new language, a new service, a new location, the church is called to multiply, and then your business is called to multiply. Invest in people, live with low overhead so that when you can want to take a risk, you can take it. Thank you, Bobby. You are the best. And awesome. I love his involvement and your involvement in what God's done at Radiant. And so if you want to follow Bobby Sasser, he's on Instagram at Bobby. Is Sasser. It just Bobby Sasser? Bobby Sasser. There's no Bobby Joe Sasser, huh?
Not there, yeah.
Bobby Sasser on Instagram, and you can follow our marathon training. We're getting close. But if you want to know more about our Multiply Masterclass, stay connected with me on social media. I'll be dropping the dates very soon. You'll see that on there. And then you can always visit multiplymasterclass.com. Hey, we love that you listen to this. Send me information about how we can make it better and we can constantly grow. Love hearing how you're listening to this. Share with your friends, and I'll see you next month on Made for More.